Hello, everyone. We are live, and it is Monday, that time again of the week for another episode of Just Shilling. So, thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate all of you. And we have another incredible guest today, and Sam Newman from Reown. Really excited to have him on. This is something that we've been working on for quite some time, and finally able to make this happen. So before we do get into this, folks, just want to let everyone know that we do not discuss anything that is ever related to financial advice. Anything that is probably a little bit too controversial for a family dinner during the holidays, we'll avoid those subjects. Nonetheless, we are all adults here. And last but not least, the things that we share today are of our own and our own opinions and do not necessarily represent our respective organizations. So without further ado, let's jump into this, Sam. I know it's a little bit later in the day where you are. So tell folks where you are and give us a little 30-second minute elevator pitch, and then we'll get into a little bit of a backstory about how we all got here today.
Sure. So thanks, Trevor. Thank you for having me on the show. It's really good to be here. I'm Sam Newman. I'm the product lead for the Reown App Kit product. I'm based in the UK, and our kind of role at Reown, basically, or our mission statement, is to improve on-chain UX and make the new internet usable. So that's what we're all working towards. Me in particular, I'm more focused on the App Kit side, which is a product primarily aimed at apps, as you can guess from the name. And we're trying to facilitate onboarding and connections between users via their wallets and to the apps themselves. So that's what we're working towards, and that's my main focus day to day.
Nice, nice. So when did I would say kind of the world of blockchain, crypto, when did this become something that was on your radar? When did you really start to go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, so I was working in primarily in financial services at the beginning of my career at some big kind of corporations like Thomson Reuters, for example, and then I moved into the investment banking side, and worked for Merrill Lynch, who are the investment banking arm of Bank of America, and I I was working through various different kind of traditional finance roles there, as you can imagine, and it was around 2017 where I started taking note of some of the news headlines around blockchains and crypto and things like that. It was around the ICO boom, right? So everyone was going like crazy around these
And tell us
ICO.
too, for the folks that may not have, an understanding of that, or were around in the space, because that's several years ago, and obviously, like a year in crypto is like dog years. So, what was the ICO boom? Kind of paint the picture a little bit for what was going on then.
Yeah, so these are when this is when projects were doing initial coin offerings, like public sales now, and there was a lot of hype and a lot of promise around these projects, and people were making a lot of money out of them. Projects were raising a lot of funds in order to kind of capitalize their projects at the beginning, and a lot of the time it was just a white paper and a website, and they'd sell a token and they'd raise millions of pounds and or millions of dollars and try and do something with it. Obviously, what comes along with that is a lot of false promises and empty promises, and yeah, 2017 had some really cool projects and a lot of excitement, but also like a lot of bad points as well. But that's when I first started taking note of it and was getting interested in it and started playing around with purchasing some tokens, reading some white papers, and playing with some of the early apps. And I carried on doing that until around 2019, and that's when I landed my first kind of professional role in the space.
Nice. So, from being someone that was an enthusiast, dabbling around with it, playing around and making some investments and whatnot, what was that catalyst that really made you say, "I'm going to take this from something that's more of a hobby to wanting to actually journey down a professional career in this industry"?
I think it was for me a combination of a few different things. So first of all, I was getting a bit tired of working for these huge businesses, right, that are very heavily regulated, very slow moving, with lots of hierarchy in them, and it's very frustrating when you're trying to get things done. You can see a problem right in front of you, and you can't fix it because there's some stakeholder who lives in a different continent who's 5 steps removed from you in the company hierarchy that needs buy-in from it, and it's very frustrating to get things done. I also found that I wasn't really learning very much. I was kind of
Hmm.
it almost becomes a bit of a factory line where you are there to do your role, whether it's generate these reports or do this, and you're not really exposed to the wider business and the bottom line, so to speak. So I wasn't really learning anything, and I was getting frustrated with the the bureaucracy. And then on top of that, outside of work, I was getting interested in the space. I'd had some experiences earlier in my life traveling around some of um, the southern countries in Africa, Mozambique and South Africa in particular, and there was a lot of people there that were completely cut off from financial infrastructure, and
Mm.
very smart people, very entrepreneurial, very like willing to put themselves out there and work hard with great ideas, but they couldn't necessarily scale their businesses because they didn't have access to capital in the same way that a lot of people in the developed world do. And all these kind of things culminated at once when I started learning about DeFi, and I thought that that's a problem there that this solution could potentially solve. And at that point, I started actually trying to pursue jobs in the space.
And your time being in South Africa and Mozambique, I think that that was pretty eye-opening for you. So how did those experiences ultimately kind of influence your ethos and just kind of the types of projects that you even wanted to be involved, and maybe talk a little bit more about how that really kind of sparked your passion for DeFi and led you to being at Reown now today?
Yeah. So first of all, it was just like I want to get involved in DeFi because I really want to learn about it. I really want to participate in it and contribute to into it. And then like in terms of my general ethos, it's basically like this technology should be available to everyone and should be really accessible. And I found kind of digging into the DeFi rabbit hole and the different projects is that a lot of it is very full of technology that a lot of people wouldn't understand. There's a lot of risk involved, and you have to really do your research and know what you're doing before you actually put any funds at risk. And also, um, there's a lot of bad UX, right? It's difficult. Like outside of DeFi, just in crypto itself, it's quite difficult to use crypto. Even if you're using, social networks or crypto games, the UX isn't where it needs to be.
Yeah.
In particular, in DeFi, it's even more difficult to get to grips with. And um, I wanted this to be available for everybody, and that's why I started moving more onto the kind of the infrastructure side and on the Reown side, so that I could hopefully contribute in a small way at least to improving the overall UX that we have on chain.
Makes a lot of sense. We're definitely going to talk a lot more about UX and the evolution of it and where we've come from and where we are today. But we do, have people in the audience that are potentially looking to make a transition, or they're curious and trying to think about how they can apply things from their quote unquote traditional career to working in this budding industry. So, were there any kind of things that helped you to navigate that transition?
I don't really have good advice there because I kind of dived like straight in and learned on the job, and it was quite difficult to get up to speed with it. I thought I could take some of the lessons learned from traditional finance and apply it to a crypto startup, and it didn't necessarily transition as easy as I thought it was going to be. But like I suppose I've learned some lessons so other people don't have to. And what I would say is that the most important part of this industry really is the subject matter itself, because outside of the industry, the same principles all apply. You still have customers, you still have revenue, you still have profits, you've still got a bottom line. The differences are only in the blockchain aspects of it, really. So having a deep understanding of how those things work, as a technical level as possible, is really gonna assist. I think keeping things at a high level, depending on your role, is maybe not enough anymore. When I moved into this industry, it was more a case of people were trying to bring skill sets into this industry. And now when I look on job boards and things like that, it's more like everyone is requesting previous experience in the space. So it's maybe more difficult to transition it now. So if you can upskill in a non-professional environment in this industry, then that's going to help you, and you can bring your experience and your knowledge and demonstrate that knowledge to a potential employer. I think that's going to help. The other thing that you can do is contribute, right? The fact that these projects are often very open and there's open governance that you can contribute to, and people will often request for help in Discord channels and Telegram channels and things like that. You can actually put yourself forward, volunteer your time and your skill set to a project, and then that can go on your portfolio, your CV, and you can demonstrate some engagement with a professional project.
Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. Sage advice for sure. What would you say was one of the most surprising things about working in the space? I mean, we all know that it moves a million miles a second. There's a lot of information to keep up with, and things are always evolving. But what was something that, even as you started to kind of, you know, go in trial by fire and hit the ground running, what were some things that were really surprising to you at first that you look back and you say, wow, that was really great and helped me to become the professional I am today?
One thing that I found really surprising in a positive way was the collaborative nature of the Web3 industry. Even though there are projects that may be like on a basic level competitors or have competitive products, most are willing to partner or help or contribute or at least communicate with everyone. So I think most people in the space are aware that this is a growing industry, and instead of trying to take someone else's piece of the pie, they're accepting that the pie is just going to keep growing, at least for the foreseeable future, and there's enough for everyone, and we all need to help each other to grow that pie if we're going to be successful. So I think it's really nice that professionals across the board and projects and companies across the board are willing to help each other and partner with each other instead of having a more adversarial relationship. I think that was a big surprise to me when I first joined, and I think it's still true now.
Yeah, for sure. Great. So let's talk a little bit more about Reown, and a lot of folks know them as know you guys as WalletConnect as well too. So, what were some of the reasons why it was originally created in the first place, and what would you say were some of the major issues that you were trying to address then that have obviously worked out and you're building up on that, but really kind of how that shifted towards what's really the main premise today and what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, so Wallet Connect itself has been around for I think about seven years now, and the original problem that the founder Pedro was trying to solve was connectivity between mobile wallet apps, and desktop applications, crypto applications. So he solved that by creating the Wallet Connect network with a relay function, so you can now scan your QR code using your MetaMask on your mobile phone, for example, and it connects to the app on your laptop, on your desktop, and then you can sign transactions, and all the messages get pushed through the relay, and it's a really nice experience. And that was obviously really successful. It found product market fit pretty quickly, and has got millions of users every day, and millions of transactions that are going through it. Um, and now since then, it's kind of expanded and actually split in two. So Wallet Connect still exists and is now the Wallet Connect network, and is pushing towards decentralization of that network. And Reown is has spun out of that and is the limited company that focuses on the other aspects of it in partnership with Wallet Connect. And our mission statement is to improve the um, on-chain UX and make the new internet usable. So the Wallet Connect network is still part of our focus, and we work
Mm,
closely WalletConnect foundation, but also we are building products for apps and wallets, and we're contributing to standards across these ecosystems that help apps and wallets or users and apps connect in
Mm,
any
and
way. It's not really limited to communication protocols necessarily. It's anything that we can do to improve that experience.
makes sense. And originally, if I'm not wrong, I mean it was primarily focused on Ethereum, correct? And then I believe more recently Solana, and I believe that you also made an announcement with Bitcoin as well too. So just kind of help me understand the similarities or the challenges between working with these different chains and the marketing. I mean, is it very similar between the different chains, or do you feel that you have different challenges and hurdles, working with those different communities because the ethos of those communities are probably a little bit different as well too?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, the WalletConnect network itself, which is this kind of connection protocol between wallets and apps, is chain agnostic. But some of the products that we built at Reown, like the AppKit product that I am the product manager for, that originally started as an EVM, Ethereum virtual machine product. So very focused on Ethereum and the different layer twos or chains that adopt the Ethereum virtual machine standards and are compatible with that. And as you said, Trevor, we then expanded that. We kind of rewrote the whole product and re-architected it so that we could adopt Solana as our first non-EVM chain in 2024, and that was a great experience. Like you said, each ecosystem has its own nuances, its own cultures,
Yeah.
and its own technical nuances as well. And we had to work with partners or experts in those areas to first of all like understand that is this like if we come into this ecosystem and we kind of invest and hopefully we can help, is it going to be solving a problem that you guys think in your ecosystem needs to be solved? Are we going to add any value there? And and obviously with Solana and as well with Bitcoin more recently, we're trying to support those ecosystems and work with some really cool projects in those ecosystems. So like on Solana, for example, we're working with some of the biggest apps in the Solana space like Jupiter and Drift as partners. And yeah, we're trying to contribute in any way we can to those ecosystems, not driving, EVM as like a way to do things, more trying to go in from the ground up and say, how can we help? We want to contribute and try to solve problems that way.
Hmm. And I mean, there are so many different wallets and things that Wallet Connect and Reown can obviously be compatible with. I'm just kind of curious, as your organization's been around for several years. I mean, it's like an OG in the space when it comes to that being around that long. What's the methodology, or is there a certain criteria that you all use internally to determine, all right, you know what, someone approaches you, we're not going to maybe do work with this chain, or maybe we're not going to partner with this type of wallet. Like, is there any kind of thing that you need to make sure as a just a baseline criteria to make sure that it's even worthwhile you partnering with?
I would say it's a mixture. Like
Okay.
some of it is gut feel and product sense, and some of it is more quantitative. So if there's a chain that's been established for a while, and we are considering whether we should support it or not and invest that time and effort in resourcing it, we would look at certain metrics like active developers on that chain, active users, transaction volumes, all of these kind of things. Um, but we don't want to limit ourselves or kind of pigeonhole ourselves or miss out on potential opportunities or early chains that we can support. So if there's an early network that doesn't necessarily have some of the metrics that we'd define as acceptable in terms of number of users, then we would go a bit more on gut feel and say this is getting a lot of attention from its community. It's growing very fast, even though the numbers may be small. and we would reach out to those people and try to help or support if we can. For example, Bearer Chain is one that we are one of the early supporters of. Monad as well. They're kind of earlier chains, but they're obviously growing very well, which is really exciting. And we want to make sure that we're supporting those networks as well at their more infant stages, so that they can have long-term success.
Nice. So let's help the audience understand a little bit more specifically kind of what you're working on. Paint the picture for us, and for those as well too that may have come from a more traditional product background, and they're like, you know what, I want to be in product. I want to work for a company like Sam. What like help us just understand what's your average day like? And I know that's crazy because there is no average day working in this industry, but really just kind of help us paint the picture a little bit to understand some of the main things that you're focusing on, and more specifically, the part of this company that you're working on with the app kit, I believe, correct?
Yeah, that's right. It's mainly focused on AppKit, although as with all of these kind of um, well, not necessarily a startup now. We've done a Series B now, so I don't know if we'd still be a startup. Maybe. Um, but yeah, I'm involved in a lot of the different departments, or at least I'm communicating with and supporting a lot of the different departments in the company. And it's not necessarily just focused on the AppKit product, because I've got to communicate with everyone, which is really good. But like thinking about an average day, a lot of my time is with the engineering teams, working really closely with them. So every day, I'll have a stand up with the engineering teams, um, talk about the work that was done the previous day, the work that's going to be done today, um, and answer any questions. Have a bit of back and forth. Make sure that the requirements are clear. Provide any context that's maybe been shared outside of the engineering teams, and make sure that we're all really well connected and unblocked, so that the engineering work can continue as efficiently as possible. And that happens every day. We have a quick sync every day and just have a coffee and talk through the work that's planned and how we're tracking against that. And then on like a more of like a weekly scale, I'm also thinking about um, the projects that we're running. So even though we're talking about the work that's been done today, how is that work actually contributing to the wider project that's currently active? And are we on track? Are we progressing as we were expecting to? Are our timelines where we thought they were going to be? And making sure that those progress updates are communicated with like the marketing team and the BD team, so that we can talk to our customers and give them promises that we can then stick to. So that's part of it. And then even on like a wider scale, which I also do, kind of part of my day is thinking about what's going to happen next quarter, what's going to happen the quarter after that, and trying to plan ahead for those, trying to run kind of experiments and do design flows for the work that's going to come, in 3 to 6 months time. Write documents and briefs on those, so that they can be explored with the rest of the team, and also contribute to building prototypes that we can share with partners, and say, is this something that you guys would potentially use? Get some early feedback and validate it before we actually start working on it with the engineering team. So there's a lot of like micro work on the micro scale of what we're doing day to day, and then also um, thinking more broadly about what we're going to be doing in 3 months time, 6 months time, and also like a year's time, or even 5 years time, if I'm working on building like a new kind of product vision document, for example, for AppKit.
Hmm. And do you feel as if the collaborative nature on your team and just in this industry is quite different from where you've been before traditionally? Do you just feel like the pace, the level of communication, or do you feel it's more collaborative? Like, what are some similarities and what are some stark differences, do you think?
The pace is definitely higher, particularly than in corporates, for example. The pace is much higher. The outputs from the team are much higher, and the amount that we ship is much higher. And it's also more, what comes with that is it's more chaotic, I guess, but sometimes in a good way. And there's no there's no right or wrong way of planning things out. But my perspective on it is that this industry demands agility from from everyone. So
Mm,
you need to be flexible in your plans, and you can plan 6 months out, but the industry might take a turn in 3 months' time, and that whole plan has gone sideways. So it's okay to have a plan, but you've got to be willing to change it and accept that it's going to change sometimes. And that happens again on like a medium term scale, but also on a micro scale. Like if there's you know a customer requirement or a bug that comes in that we hadn't planned for, that's like, this is really high priority, we need to jump on this right now, then you have to change, you have to adapt, and you have to jump on a call with the team and get everyone's head on it and say, like, let's think about what we're going to do here and resolve this situation, or let's jump on this opportunity, depending on what it is. There are so many opportunities around, right? So you got to be flexible, you got to look for those opportunities and jump on them when they arise, and that has to be balanced with not losing focus on your long-term mission, because if you're just chasing all directions, you're moving a lot of directions but not very far in any direction. So yeah,
yeah.
trying to find that balance.
Yeah, I bet it's very interesting to find that balance, no doubt. And as you mentioned, with just the rapid changes and developments in this space, but specifically with DeFi, um, what specific changes do you think need to be made to kind of improve the overall user experience? And I know that's really something that your company really focused on, to make it more accessible to the mainstream audiences. And kind of give us a little bit of a history lesson, maybe about Sam, where we've come from with the user experience to kind of where we are right now, and what you're ultimately trying to do to make it better.
Yeah, so I touched on it at the beginning of the call around the user experience in DeFi. My personal take is that we've moved in the right direction, particularly in DeFi, but there's still a long way to go if we want to get the kind of adoption that we all hope for in this. And the primary thing holding people back, I think, is the user experience and the barrier to entry. So there's a few different parts of that. First of all, completely outside of DeFi, in order to get involved in DeFi, you've got to understand what a crypto wallet is. You've got to install a crypto wallet. You've got to set it up. You've got to fund it. Um, how do you get funds on chain? When you try to deposit something into a DeFi protocol, you've got to deal with something called gas. Like, what is that? It's really confusing. I've got some stable coins that my friend sent me, and I'm trying to deposit, and now I need this other token called ETH. I don't know what that is. How do I get it? How do I swap into it? All of these things are like really, really difficult if you're brand new to the space. And we take it for granted because we've been in the space for a long time. And it's really important not to lose sight of the fact that most people haven't gone through rigmarole of being through that whole process. And there's a convenience factor to this. At the moment, none of this is convenient. We are the people that queue up, 24 hours before the new iPhone is released, whereas the rest of the world just wait for it to turn up in their local shop or for it to be available in Amazon. So, like, we're willing to put up with the inconvenience because we're interested and we're passionate, but most people are not. So we need to meet the users where they are, and we need to lower that barrier to entry, make it really easy to have a crypto wallet and have some funds on chain. And then from then, actually make the apps themselves much more user friendly, have the use cases more Web 2 like or traditional finance like. And we're working on a few ways of doing that, which I'm happy to go into.
Yeah, go into that a little bit more. Talk a little bit about, from the product side, and specifically kind of what you're working on. Like, how is what you're developing making it easier for developers to create, dApps and other kind of applications, and other things as well too, because there was some cool stuff that I was seeing, like recently, a post with like Mercedes Benz or something like that, where they had like a way that you can actually connect a wallet and your NFT and then have it like displayed in your car. And there was some other really kind of cool things that you guys were doing. I don't want to spill the beans or talk about anything that you're working on in the future, but just kind of help me understand that as well too, from like a developer standpoint. Like, what are some of the biggest challenges that they have in being able to kind of help with the adoption mainstream?
Yeah, so one of the primary things that we provide via AppKit, and it's not for every crypto project, but it's more targeted at projects that are interested in customers that are not Web3 native, right?
Okay.
So newcomers to the space, for example, and this applies to like games, to social apps, and also to some DeFi projects as well. But the problem that a lot of people have is that they need to create a crypto wallet and they don't understand how to do that. It's a painful experience and they have to manage private keys and most people don't want to have to understand that, or they don't care enough about the benefits of doing that in order to adopt it. So we provide email and social login wallets. So if you're an app developer, you install the SDK. It takes like 10 seconds. And as well as having a list of wallets that can connect to your app, like your MetaMask and Trust and Rainbow wallets, you also have an option to provide email and social login. So if I go to it and I type in my email address, sam at reown.com, for example, I can just spin up a wallet with my Reown email address. Equally, you can create one from your Twitter account, so it just authorizes your Twitter account and it spins up an on-chain wallet for you. And this is a lot more like the experience that we have in Web two, right? You go to um, I don't know, a social channel, for example, and you log in with Google and it creates an account for you and you log in. And that's the same experience that you can have on crypto apps now. So that's one thing. And then the next problem is, okay, now I've got a crypto app. How do I actually use it? Because there's no funds in it. And the AppKit SDK has a built-in on-ramp. So you can buy crypto and fund your wallet without leaving the app. It's all in the app, which is really nice. And you can fund your brand new crypto app. And then if you need to, it's also got built-in swaps as well, so you can swap to whatever asset you need to. And then like the last layer on top of it, which is getting a little bit more advanced, is something called gas abstraction. So these problems of network fees, where people have assets that they don't really understand, that they got to pay. I've got to pay for two different things. I've got to pay for this NFT, but I also need to pay this gas fee. I don't really understand it. We have
Mhm.
to abstract that as well, which is kind of like, imagine you go on Amazon and you want to buy a new I don't know, a new speaker or something like that, and you pay the fee and it's in US dollars, and then you've got to pay an additional fee, which is like Amazon's AWS costs. Like,
Yeah.
why would you have to pay for their infrastructure costs? And we're trying to abstract that away so users don't need to worry about infrastructure costs, which is the equivalent of network fees on chain. So we abstract that away, make it as easy as possible for them. They can either pay in the currency that they have in their wallet, or the apps themselves could actually sponsor the infrastructure costs, and then charge that back to the customer in another way.
I like that. That's really cool. Cool. So in terms of DeFi platforms, really kind of how can we make them stronger, in terms of trust for the users, and what are some steps that you are taking in your organization when it comes to kind of educating the public on, the importance of security, scalability, and just the overall value of what you're trying to build?
Yeah, so we support apps in a number of different ways, and one of them is protecting the user um, about the transactions that they're submitting, right? So there's a problem in the space, although it's not as bad as it was around kind of impersonation of apps. So you think that you're going onto Uniswap or Aave, one of the big DeFi.
Mm,
Actually, you've clicked on a link from somewhere and it's taken you to a fork of their front end and it looks the same. And when you submit your first transaction, it actually drains your wallet, right? And
yeah.
we hear horror stories about this all the time. And um, we've built a solution with this verify API where the domain is registered as acceptable or not, and you may be clicking on app-get, and sorry, you may be trying to submit a transaction through that app, but the verify API will flag it and say that this is not a verified API. So
Wow,
if you
amazing.
try and do it through a one of the domains that's registered with our verify API, it will say that it's been verified, give you a green tick, and if it's not, you may think you're on the right app, but the verify API and the UI that goes into the wallets themselves, because it's integrated with the wallets like Trust and Rainbow and MetaMask as well, they'll receive that and it will show up as a red flag, and you can pause for a second and think, am I in the right place here? I need to stop before I lose all my funds.
Awesome. And also, as well, too, another issue is scalability in this space and kind of keeping that even balance of decentralization and then the need for scalability. So, what do you think that that balance is that is needed to really kind of help with user adoption for mainstream audiences?
Yeah, I mean, different networks have taken different approaches to this, and some have sacrificed decentralization in the name of scalability
Mm,
and speed of innovation. I'm thinking of Solana here as an example, and others have prioritized decentralization over scalability or speed and the speed of innovation. And I'm thinking of Ethereum here. And I don't know which one's gonna win out. Really, it's gonna be interesting to see, and maybe they're both gonna win, and that's not a bad thing for sure. I think that there are different routes to the same objective, and there'll be different paths to get there. But hopefully, we'll be able to see success on a number of different networks. I'm sure there will be some that fail along the way, but I think there's in terms of scalability, we've got like almost unlimited block space now. The layer twos are proving their worth, and they're working really well, at least for the amount of adoption that we have at the moment, and for the you know for the foreseeable as well. And the UX problems are bigger for me, like the chain, like the multiple chain issue or chain abstraction. Like I've got funds on base, but I want to spend them on optimism. That's a big issue that's trying to be solved at the moment.
And what's your perspective on institutional adoption? I know that that's obviously a big hot topic right now. Institutions are coming in, and what role do you really kind of see you playing in this in your organization in a whole?
So we are working and trying to support some institutions in trying to adopt these. There's certain regulations and compliance rules that they have to follow. One example is the travel rule, where if you're sending funds, example from a centralized exchange that's regulated, as a VASP, they call them, which is a virtual assets service provider, then they need to verify that you own the account that you are sending to. So if you, Trevor, you have a Coinbase account and you're sending it to your self custody, sending some funds to your self custody account, you need to actually verify that you own that account. And this is like a regulation to prevent anti-money laundering and sanctioned wallets and the like. So we provide solutions around that where you can connect and authenticate your wallet before you're allowed to send to it via these platforms. And there are other kind of compliance rules that we're looking at as well, like sanctioned wallet flagging. So you would say that you can't send assets to this wallet because it's been involved in this scam, or it's been sanctioned for these various reasons. So it's protection for those institutions to make sure that they fall the right side of the compliance and regulation laws, and also working with them to try and um, not educate is probably the wrong word, but support them in understanding all those kind of hoops that they need to jump through in the space, particularly if they are just trying to enter the Web3 or the crypto space.
Mm. And how do you think that by players like this coming into the space, how do you think that it will ultimately kind of just shape the future of blockchain technology and more specifically when it comes to like DeFi and decentralization? Because, with old guard institutions. A lot of them are not willing to just completely revamp and give up everything that they've experienced to get them to where they are now. But also, too, right, there are a lot of OGs and people that really want to continue to keep that decentralized entirely, right? So how do you kind of go between back and forth there?
I think that things are gonna blend together quite a lot. I think that the hope or the original vision of DeFi was that it would replace these traditional finance institutions. And I don't think, like you said, I don't think they're going to go away for the foreseeable future. I think some of them will adapt. Those that don't adapt will probably carry on in a smaller way for the foreseeable future at least. And then there'll be some that mix, and there'll be institutions that actually use DeFi platforms, for example, and some of their investment products will be based on deposits that are in DeFi platforms. And that's a good thing in a way because it provides more access to these kind of yields and these products that are at the moment kind of blocked off by this barrier of entry that we've been talking about. And you can imagine that is potentially quite a good thing that you could access some of these products through your existing pension, for example. And then I think there'll be a third category, which are the people that really value self custody and the ethos around decentralization,
Yeah.
and they'll avoid these traditional finance products, and they'll go into DeFi and decentralized products. And I think that sector of finance, if you take finance as a whole, is going to grow. The traditional finance sector, as it exists now, will shrink, and then there'll be this section in the middle, which will be a blend of kind of DeFi and traditional finance.
Hmm. And as the space continues to evolve, I mean, maybe you can talk a little bit about like the regulatory challenges or just how that is impacting, your overall roadmap. But as the space does start to mature, what are some of the biggest challenges that you can foresee? I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but just kind of thinking about that and really kind of how can the industry then overcome some of those things that you feel maybe challenges to really kind of ensure, a sustainable kind of growth overall?
I think the first thing to do is um, to engage with regulators. I think if you look at any product that's had or any industry that's particularly involved in financial assets has had regulation in order to get adoption, and that's on paper for a good reason, right? To protect the everyday person that's potentially got funds at risk, and to prevent bad actors within that space. And we've certainly had our share of bad actors in the crypto space. And I think that there's a risk that if as an industry we don't engage with regulators, then it will be the industry will be pushed kind of to kind of a darker space where it's not as accessible to people. People don't trust it, and it doesn't get the adoption that we all hope for. So I think that as an industry, we need to continue to engage with regulators, make sure that the decision makers there understand the benefits of it and the benefits, particularly to the end user and the end consumer, and how there can be relevant protections for them, and make sure that that's understood, as well as pushing back and kind of defending the whole ethos around this space and making sure that there's not regulatory overreach, which is certainly the other side of the coin, right? Which is a risk, because it's gonna prevent innovation. We've had a lot of innovation in the space, and if we allow regulatory overreach, is gonna prevent any further innovation or reduce any further innovation, and things are going to slow down. We're not going to get to where we need to get to in terms of the user experience, and it's going to be very difficult going forward. So it's a bit of a minefield, I think. We'll have to, like, as an industry, like, hopefully play it delicately and find the right path. But I think the best way to do that is through engagement and communication rather than kind of more of an adversarial approach to it.
Yeah, and in the comment section, we have some questions about like bots, Web3 identity, and things like that. So, just something that kind of comes to mind for me is with the advancements of AI and a lot of these agents that are kind of coming into fruition, right? And creating tokens and things right out of the blue, and really driving up a huge amount of money and value and doing things on behalf of quote unquote humans, right? Like, how do you see that potentially impacting your business, or is it something that that you guys are already starting to kind of have chats about internally, and how that's going to change the industry, and how to even kind of prepare for maybe some security risk or threats or other potential opportunities that we're not even thinking about today in its present form?
Yeah, I mean, this is really exciting. Not only are we like thinking about this and discussing it, we've actually released products directly related to this, and it's like I think like no one is under the illusion that AI isn't going to change society and the world significantly, right? It's already right in front of us, and like if you use any of the AI products that are out there now, any of the big ones at least, you can see the step change in productivity and and all the applications that it could be used for. So it's a big topic, and there's a lot of potential avenues for interaction with crypto and Web3. From our point of view, we're thinking not necessarily about the use case because we're trying to provide more general purpose infrastructure, right? So we're not at the moment creating any AI bots that are involved in the space, but we are providing infrastructure for it. So there's a product available or a feature available called Smart Sessions. And the idea with this is that you want to allow these AI agents to do tasks for you, on-chain tasks, right? Like
Hmm.
buy tokens, move my liquidity from one place to the other, sell it if it reaches a certain price, all of these kind of things that you can imagine um, it doing. But you wouldn't want to share your private key with an AI bot, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like I know they don't have emotions and stuff, but like there's something you shouldn't trust about it. So um, a lot of AI solutions now in the space, it requires you to either pre-fund the AI bot. So you actually say, right, here's 1,000 USDC, do these tasks. The other option is that you give it access to your private keys so that it can run with it and do as it needs to based on your prompts. With smart sessions, what you can do is say, I'm going to give access to this AI bot, 1,000 USDC for the next 30 days. And the AI bot is allowed to interact with these smart contracts and it's allowed to perform these functions. And if it tries to do anything outside of that, the transaction is not going to go through. And it uses a new protocol or a new standard, which is an Ethereum ERC called 7715, and it allows the wallet basically to share permissions with the app, whether that's an AI app or a DeFi app or a social app or a game. These permissions can be shared, and you can build a variety of use cases for it. So AI bots is one of them, and it's a really good use case for it. But you can imagine a game, for example, where you want to give a game $10 for the next 2 hours while you play the game, access to $10, and instead of every time you want to buy a new car in the game, you've got to leave the game, sign a transaction on your wallet, and then come back to the game. You don't need to
Mm.
worry about that, right? It's got access to it. It'll pull the funds within that $10 limit, and you can stay in the game. And the same for social, dollar cost averaging on DeFi, all of these kind of use cases that involve you performing an action on chain without actually having to open your wallet and be there. So it's a much more passive experience, but hopefully a more pleasant one.
Wow, it's just like the potential use cases. It's just honestly mind blowing to think about where this can go. We are still so early, for sure. And speaking of that, this conversation has been incredible. We could probably chat for another entire hour here, but the time is coming up, and I want to make sure that we can learn a little bit more about just kind of some of the internal things that are going on with Reown. For those that may not be familiar, can you just share a little bit about like the culture? From the top down, what makes it special to work there, and what are some of the things that you enjoy most about being able to be on your role and the mission that you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, I think what's really special is the mission. Like we're I've said it multiple times here about creating the UX for the new internet, and that is like a mantra and a passion for the people that work at Reown. From the top down, Jess Holgrave, the CEO, she's really passionate about it, and we really focus on it all the time. Every kind of all hands meeting, we kind of repeat, like, look at the mission, just a reminder of like why are we doing this, and that that trickles down through everyone. Everyone is very passionate about it. People are not looking at ticker prices and how like the latest meme coin. Well, some people are. It's not the main conversation, people are passionate about the technology, they're
Yeah.
passionate about the apps and the use cases and the users. And and yeah, it's really nice. Like people are passionate about it, and it means that people have conversations with enthusiasm, with like good intent. People are all working in the same direction, even if we disagree on the way that we get there. um, there's no kind of no bad intentions, and people are all like pulling in the right direction. So it's great working there. It's really good.
And are you all a fully remote team? Like, do you guys have people all over the world? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, we're fully remote. Most of the team, I would say 75% of the team are in the European time zone, with some in the US, and a handful in the APAC region as well. So we've got a good spread, and a lot of different voices and cultures and experience across the board, which is really nice. And we're completely remote, but we get together virtually, at least once a month as like a whole team, and do kind of team activities virtually. And then twice a year as well, we will have, have a get together in person. So last time we were in Morocco, and this beginning of this year, we're in April. People will be going to Turkey to meet up as well, and then we'll have another one towards the autumn. And on top of that, there's also regular events and conferences, and you'll have like a handful of the team will go out to this conference. Obviously, the marketing and the BD team are usually kind of ever present there, but if there's a conference in your area, you're like very very kind of encouraged to go to it and see the rest of the team and hang out where you can. So it's good. You get a good blend of remote and face-to-face time, I'd say.
Nice. And is there anything else too? I mean, know that you recently just got that recent funding round as well too. So help us kind of understand a little bit about like what the significance of that, and a little bit more about your roadmap and what you're planning that you can obviously disclose with the public.
Yeah, so the funding gives us obviously some more wiggle room in terms of um, our runway, and also it brings on and kind of reinforces our partnership with the existing investors, which is really good. We've got some very strong investors that are both in the kind of devoted to the crypto and Web3 space, but also maybe outside that space as well, which is really important, because um, we definitely want to increase the on-chain adoption of Web3, and having partners that are kind of across the board with connections there is going to help us do that. So that's going to be something that we look at for the rest of the year as well, is potential use cases there. But one of the big things that we're pushing still at the moment is this UX challenge that we still think is something that we can add value to and solve. um, and doing things like these smart sessions and gas abstraction and chain abstraction. These are big problems, right? They're not easy to solve, and we're doing our best to solve them and also get adoption in the crypto and Web3 space first before we roll that out outside of these early adopters.
And this is, I know that it's great. You're fighting the good fight for making the user experience better, and I say there are other organizations doing great work as well too. What would you say is like the biggest challenge or hurdle to really kind of making this move at a quicker pace? And do you feel as if we're being kind enough to ourselves and just understanding the evolution of technology compared to some other major technology that have come before us?
Yeah, I think it's very easy to feel impatient about the progress, and I certainly feel that way sometimes. And I think that when you step back, there's been great strides in terms of the actual adoption. Like I think if you look at the charts in terms of like the internet adoption versus
Yeah.
Web3 adoption, it looks pretty positive in our favor. And these things do take time. It's a big, potentially a big societal shift, and that's not going to happen overnight. That only happens if there's some kind of bloody revolution or something like that. So it's good that we are doing it the right way and doing it potentially perceived as a slow way, but I'd rather it happens that way organically than it gets rushed and burns in a big heap of flames. And these things do take time. If you look at AI, for example, it felt like it kind of exploded on the scene with ChatGPT, but
Yeah.
if you look back at the history of it, it's been going on for decades before it reached that stage, and now it's reached a tipping point, and I think that we'll get there as well with crypto. I think the the way that things have happened up until now, with bad actors like Sam Bankman-Fried, for example,
Mm,
has pushed us back a little bit in terms of society's perception of the industry. But the more good news stories and the more kind of enterprise and institutional adoption that we get, the more regulatory clarity. And one thing that I'd really like to see more of is more consumer-facing apps that are actually
yes.
better solving problems in a better way than the Web2 alternative. I think that's going to go a long way. And I hope that in 5 years' time, people will be using this stuff without even realizing that they're using it.
It'll be like under the hood. No one will even know that they're using the technology. Great way to close it out. And in terms of people as well, too, we have a couple of folks who are talking about, are you guys hiring? Volunteering opportunities, internships? How can people in the community get involved? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you and stay up to speed with all the incredible things that you all are doing?
Yeah, so we are hiring for a few roles. So that's all on our website. You can see the open roles there and apply there. There's also an active Discord, a Reown Discord, which you
Nice.
can jump into and be part of, and talk with other projects that are using AppKit and WalletKit, for example, and also just have a general chat and ask us questions. You can find me there sometimes. Responding to people, but also if you want to connect on Twitter, I'm on sorry, X. I'm on X as well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Sam, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so, so much for your time today. I said I was going to get you off early, so I'm going to make that promise and get you off 1 minute early.
Oh,
I
thank you.
really appreciate all that you've done. Folks that are tuning in today, thank you. You could have been doing a million things. It's St. Patrick's Day here, so I know that folks probably were taking time off to put their celebration on pause to listen to this important conversation, but it is an important conversation nonetheless. Continue to keep in touch with us, folks, and look out for some other great guests in future episodes of Just Shilling. Have a good one. We'll get this up on the socials. Take care, guys. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.